Oh, right.
Do that thing where you have to...
Did a horse just walk in?
Apparently.
This is Barely Furcasting, featuring Tabin and Injured Nerves audio production. Well, hello everyone, every fur, and all our faithful listeners out in the Podiverse. I hope you are all doing well. Hello, Tabin. How are you today?
Hello, Mr. Barely. I'm doing pretty good today. It's been a good day. I actually got out. It wasn't raining today. Got out for a little run without my puppy leash. I'm a little naughty pup, but I did it. It was good. But it's been a good day. How about you, Mr. Barely? How's your day going? Dare I ask?
It's been a day and a half, or day and 3/4, I should say. But one good thing that happened today, I got my ballot in the mail.
Oh, yay.
Our voting
Good
ballot.
for you. Yeah. Oh, your voting ballot.
But I do want to remind every fur out there to vote. Never before in the history of our country, as Bucktown said last week,
Yes.
if everyone votes, then the government truly is representative of all people. And I want to come up with a slogan right now. I want to fur up the vote.
Fur up the vote. I like it. I like it.
Fur up the vote. Let's get out there and vote, everybody. Let's get to our mailbag. We actually have a letter this time. I'm so excited.
That's so exciting. I totally wag about that. That's exciting.
It was on our Facebook page, and it says, "Just wanted to say hi.
Hi.
I discovered your podcast a couple of months ago, and I've listened to 4 or 5, and they've all been very enjoyable. I especially enjoyed the interviews with Uncle Kage and Strobes, so we know which ones he's listened to so far.
We do.
Tabin sounds completely adorable.
Oh, you're so nice, see?
And his Fursona likewise. Barely looks like a southern gentleman, but also sounds quite sexy. Apparently I sound sexy.
Apparently. Well, hi there, Mr. Barely.
He goes on to write, my husband and I are a couple of gray muzzles, although he's not really a furry, who've been together for almost 33 years. Well, congratulations.
Wow. Congratulations. That's a long time.
They've been together as long as I've worked for the state.
I wonder if there's a
Connection?
Correspondence or connection. That's what I'm looking for.
But then he says, that's probably way too much information. But I wanted you to know that your podcast appeals to a wide range of people. Hugs, Paul Driver.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you, Paul. That's very nice of you. And that's great to know that there's other furs and people in all kinds that like our stuff. This pup likes to entertain. So if we can entertain more, that's even great.
The more people we can entertain, the more people are happy.
And that's a bigger number than less than that. But thank you, Paul. Yes, hugs to you too. That's very nice of you to say.
So let's move on to media.
Media. I don't know why I did it like that. I guess it depends on what you're watching.
Well, Halloween season is up. And
true.
The funny thing about Halloween season, everything you turn on now is like, it's spooky season. No, it's not. Halloween's one day. It's one day.
It's not spooky. Like if you look outside right now, like there's a lot of leaves on the ground and that's kind of spooky, but it's not really spooky.
Yeah. It's called autumn, not spooky season. There's not 5 seasons. Autumn, fall, winter, and spooky.
Yeah. If there was 5 seasons, then there'd be an extra large hotel to go to.
Yes,
and for
4 seasons.
There's a 4 seasons for any fur out there that didn't get what I just said. Congratulations. I'm proud of you. But also, there's a 4-season hotel, so I made a bad joke. Okay, moving on.
I watched a movie called Ava. It's AVA.
Ava. I have not heard of that.
It was one of those that was supposed to come out in the theater, but because of COVID, they went direct to stream. It's a pretty good assassin flick.
Mm-hmm.
She's an assassin. It's Chastain, or Jessica Chastain is the lead character. It's got John Malkovich and Colin Farrell in it. So it's got some really heavy hitters. It had a lot of action. It was fun to watch, but it didn't really hit a home run because I'm not going to spoil it for anybody that wants to watch it, but they never really established why they wanted to do what they wanted to do to her.
Where's the motivation?
Right. You come in in the middle of the story. Why? Where's the why? There was no why.
Does that mean it's set up for a sequel, maybe?
Totally. When they ended it, I was expecting another scene. It faded to black, and I was expecting another scene, and then the credits started rolling, and I was like, well, you brought me in at the middle, and you never even took me to the end. I'm confused. So what have you been watching, Tabin?
Let's see. What have I been watching? So last week I talked about how we were watching the latest season of The Good Place, and we finished that season, so now we're done with it, and I think there's 4 seasons, and no spoiler, of course, but I want people to know that's it. You can go online and find it. There's only 4 seasons, and it ended really well. I wouldn't actually want them to make another season and try more. It ended in a very nice spot, and I really like the ending. So it's good. And I guess online, the writers and the creators of the show said, yeah, we felt this was a good place to end. We don't want to try and top anything and disappoint anyone. So well worth the watch. My husband, Tatsu, hadn't seen F is for Family yet. I watched all of it. And so we actually started watching that for him, and it's great. And we also started watching the most recent season of Suits. Have you heard of that show?
I have not.
I've always liked the legal and law type stuff, and it's one of those Netflix things. It's just really interesting, really great. It's a great law thing, but it's drama too and stuff. It's also hilarious at times, and it's great. So yes, for every fur out there that wants to check out another law-based thing that's drama and also comedic, check out Suits, Suits.
So I think it's time that we should post the link for 5-minute furs for fun.
5-minute furs for fun.
All right, we have a 5-minute furs for fun that joined us. Chiron, welcome.
Thank you.
Wow. Yeah, thank you. Welcome you to the show for 5 minutes or stuff.
It's nice to be here.
So you're from Florida, or Florida, as they say or Florida down there. How do they say that?
I say Florida, whatever.
Florida.
Good for you. Good for you. Because if you're Florida, you're like what? Florida into the ocean? I don't know.
So you're down there in Florida, and we're up here in the Northwest, which is kind of exciting.
Mm-hmm.
We read your letter today, so you've got a double home run. We read your letter, and you got into 5-minute furs for fun, which is really kind of exciting.
Exactly.
Wow. So. For us, I know what that means for you, but for us, it's pretty exciting.
And you said in your letter that you and your husband have been together for 33 years. That's a long time.
Yeah, it'll be 33 years this coming Christmas.
Wow. Exciting.
Yay, Christmas. We wag for you.
That's as long as I've been at my job.
I wonder if there's like a connection. Like, did you get together with him and that spawned Barely's job, or vice versa? Or is the world just crazy and there's a butterfly floating around in China?
All of the above.
Okay. Because
the world is definitely crazy. I mean, there's no doubt of that.
That's true.
I'm hoping you got the butterfly reference too.
Yes.
Okay,
absolutely.
good.
And for those furs that didn't watch the movie The Butterfly Effect, and you'll learn everything about it. So what brought you to Florida?
A car. No, we...
Wow, that's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was actually, when I lived in California, I was married to a woman, and she didn't like big cities, earthquakes, or, smog or anything like that. And they were just getting ready to start work on Epcot. So I actually came here with the hopes of getting a job. And sure enough, I think they said I was the second person hired as part of the Epcot hiring phase. So I've worked for Walt Disney World all this time.
Wow. That's exciting.
I just retired after 39 and a third years.
Wow. And that's even more exciting.
Exactly. It really is.
What did you do in Walt Disney World for them?
Well, many things, but mostly for the last part of it, I was a computer system technician. We work on all the computers, cash registers, and a lot of miscellaneous equipment. Finally, starting also with Apple and Android devices as well.
So you're a total techie fur.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So tell us about your Fursona, Chiron.
Okay. Well, Chiron, originally, back in 1973, when I invented him, he is a centaur, Palomino colorations and everything. After a while, he eventually got to where he saved a sorcerer who then gave him the ability to become a anthropomorphic horse. Now he spends a lot of his times as a two-legged horse, which was also convenient for artists who said that they couldn't draw humans or horses. So it makes it a little easier to get commissions. Yeah, really. Right now, I am waiting for my place in line to get a fursuit of my Fursona.
Who are you commissioning from?
For the win. And actually, the more I hear people talk about them, apparently they're pretty popular and do very good quality work. So I'm very anxious to see my fursuit, but it's going to be a while, unfortunately.
Well, that's how it works these days, definitely. So how long have they been around? I had not heard of them.
I don't know. They have a place on Facebook if you want to check out For the Win.
I'm going to actually check that out. Sounds interesting. So you retired, so that's exciting. What do you do? I hear that when you retire, you're even more busy than when you were not retired. Are you finding that's the case?
Actually, I'm keeping myself busy. Yeah, no problem. I mean, there's certainly a ton of things to do around the house. Also, my husband likes to do drag, and he got a job actually where they are doing online seminars to colleges, and they talk about the history of drag. And actually, he does his makeup during the show, and they needed some promotional videos. So I have filmed and edited several, well, not film, okay, electronically recorded and edited, and they were sent to these groups. The one that my husband works with is called Everything But the Mime, and they have groups that show, like, knitting and all sorts of things. It's not drag. It's just a lot of different how-tos and discussions, and it's very interesting.
Very cool. No, that's very cool. It's great that there's all kinds of things like that going on out there, everywhere.
So what is her drag name?
BJ Stevens. And it's not for the reason you might think, although it does play very nicely into that. It's a nice double entendre. But
yes.
He didn't want to have an obvious name, because you see someone in the mall and they yell across the mall, "Hey, Gertrude!" and it's like everyone's looking at you like, Gertrude. But,
yeah.
So,
hello.
but actually, Brian is his middle name, and my middle name is James. So BJ.
There you go.
And then if someone yells BJ in the mall, no one's going to pay attention. It's like, okay.
Everybody's going to look, though.
They're going to look at someone's yelling. Yeah, especially in the malls nowadays. I don't know.
Right.
I haven't been to a mall in forever, but
cool. That's pretty cool.
Cool. Well, I'm sorry to say that our 5 minutes is up, and this is a 5-minute segment.
Yes, it is.
Thank you for coming on the show, and be sure to listen on the 24th when this comes out.
I will. Thank you very much.
All right.
Thanks for popping on, and that wonderful letter you sent us. We'll talk to you later.
Will you keep up the good quality shows, and I'll keep listening.
Okay, we'll do our best. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Bye-bye.
All right. Take care.
Well, that was great. We had a 5-minute burst for fun. I'm always excited when somebody finally logs in. That's so exciting.
Yeah. Yay. Thank you.
Well, it is now time to move on to our guest.
Oh, yeah. Who is our guest this week, Billy?
Our guest this week is Dr. Sharon Roberts.
Dr. Sharon Roberts.
From Furscience.
Furscience. Ooh, right. They've got some very interesting, cool stuff. I'm excited to talk to her about things I WEG.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Sharon Roberts from Furscience. Doctor, yes.
Sharon, you can give Band-Aids and stuff.
I don't think she's that kind of doctor, Tabin.
Oh, I see.
Help, I need a sociologist, said no one ever.
Okay.
And you are from Furscience.
Yes.
All right. And we are going to ask you some questions. And I'm actually going to start, because what is a sociologist, and how is that different from an anthrozoologist?
Oh, okay. Well, let's start with a big, broad way of thinking about sociology. So if you're in my intro class, I would start with a slide that says sociology is the systematic study of societies. But when you get to the applied version of sociology, sociologists do all different kinds of things. And I specialize in identity formation. So I study the transition to adulthood and how people transition into adulthood. And so my focus is on how people know themselves and how they are able to engage in work, education, work transitions, and just those general areas. So this became an applied area when it comes to the furry fandom.
Oh, very cool. So what is an anthrozoologist then? Is that what the grand title of the furry sociologist is?
Well, Kathy is an anthrozoologist and a social psychologist. And so I actually have my own specialty, and other people on the team have their own specialties. So social psychology and clinical psychology, social work. So
social work.
Yeah, we have a social worker on our team as well. So Zach Marshall is a transgender expert, and I think for the purposes of this, he would want me to say lives as a transgender man, and he's his social work background as well, medical and social work, really cool stuff out of McGill.
Very big social team. You must talk to each other a lot since you're so social. That was a very bad joke that I just did. I realized that, but I kind of couldn't resist.
If you haven't heard our podcast, Tabin is the king of puns on our podcast, and really bad jokes. So
actually, Mike has the good puns and good jokes, and I just have the bad jokes and bad puns and bad.
Okay. I'll just do the science then.
Okay, good,
We
good.
got it all covered.
I think we've got it all covered. We've got it figured out. I like that. Good, good, good. So how did you get into the sociology?
Oh, well, that wasn't my plan at all. When I started university, I started off as a clothing, textiles, and design student.
Oh,
I know. My plan was to make wedding dresses and potentially be someone who sold fabric to fabric stores. And my first year of university was a disaster. I don't mind saying that because I think it's a pretty normative experience for first year students to think they're going to like something and it turns out that it's just a disaster. And I tell my students that because I want them to know that if they get the better fit and they try things a little differently, they can be pretty successful. So I went from being a clothing, textiles, and design student to being a psychology student. And so I got a bachelor's degree in psychology, a 2-year master's degree in sociology, and then a 6-year PhD in sociology. And actually, I'm just about to finish a master's of social work as well. So I went back to school after. It's not the normative trend after you get tenure to go back and do another degree, but I had some plans for some of the research that I want to do in the furry.
so those overlapped in what you went back to school for, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, I had a lot of reasons for doing the MSW, but one of them was definitely I have a I want to study trauma in the furry fandom, and it's important to do that kind of work ethically. And I'm dedicated enough to actually just go back and do another degree. I mean, what's another 3 or 4 years on top of 12?
Exactly,
So,
right?
right?
So where did all your degrees come from?
Well, I am purple and proud. So I'm from Ontario, and Western University, which used to be known as the University of Western Ontario, is my alma mater. So I did my degrees there because I switched disciplines. It was appropriate for me to do all three degrees there. And then this last MSW is at a school called Wilfrid Laurier.
Wolfridge.
Yeah, it's Wilfrid Laurier is in Waterloo.
Oh,
So the
okay.
other ones are in London, Ontario.
Yeah, cool. And so for science, is it based where you are, or is it sanctioned by your university, or where does that sit?
We're international.
That's true.
So the core of our team. So we talk about the founding member, which is Dr. Kathy Gerbasi. She's a professor emerita at this point. And then there are the 3 additional co-founders. So we talk about the 4 co-founders of Furscience. So Kathy, Stephen Rayson in Texas, Dr. Courtney Nucaplant at Bishops in Quebec, and then I'm in Ontario. So we're really situated between New York, Texas, Ontario, and Quebec for the
So you're all over the place,
we're all
basically.
over the
Yeah.
place. In fact, actually, it might be it's an interesting thing maybe for you to know. Are the 4 co-founders have never actually all been in the same room at the same time.
Really?
Really, just like 2 or 3 of them, but not all 4.
That's right, not all 4. So the day that we all get together will be quite an amazing day. I look forward to that.
Yeah, that'll be like one big party right
And
there.
how long has Furscience been in existence then?
So Kathy started this project in 2006. So she was doing work at her university, and someone sent her a message and said, "Hey, I've got this person that I'm seeing in clinic, and they describe themselves as a furry. Do you know anything about this?" And she had no idea. So she started digging around the way that Kathy would, and she found that there was going to be a convention close by in Pittsburgh. And
Wonder
so
what that was.
I wonder what yeah. And so she contacted, Dr. Conway or Uncle Kage and said, "Hey, I'm a social psychologist, a professor. I would like to come and do some studies." It doesn't like there's nothing in peer review available at all. Like there are no academic articles at all available on this community. And so I would like to come in and see. And so her guiding philosophy was she had just found this Vanity Fair article, The Pleasures of the Fur.
Oh,
And
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, the first project was really just about like assessing the veracity of those claims that they were making in that article in Vanity Fair. So that was 2006. Between 2009 and 2011, you have Stephen, Courtney, and myself coming on to the team. And then we start to grow from there. So we actually have lots of other partners. We've got some really great people. Dr. Elizabeth Fine at Duquesne is working on our autism component of our work and working on our theory anthropy part of our work. And yeah, then we've got the transgender work that's being done by Zach up in Quebec as well. So we really are, and we've got lots of partners all over the place. I'm just thinking of those two right now because those are immediately on my list of things that I'm working on. Yeah, we're growing. We're growing globally, which is exciting because we want to share what we have in terms of our resources with other researchers. So we've worked really hard to build trust with the community, and our goal is to document scientifically um, things that haven't been documented before. And so, with that trust has allowed us to have a rapport. We've built a rapport with the community. They've seen what we do with the data. We try to be as transparent as possible with all of that kind of stuff. Make sure the results are posted in places that people can find them. And yeah, I think we're really starting to grow. So the International Anthropomorphic Research Project is this whole period that starts in 2006. But by the time we get to 2016, we're growing pretty significantly. And International Anthropomorphic Research Project is a pretty big mouthful. And so we thought that maybe we should get some help with our branding. And we came up with the Furscience. So Furscience is the dissemination arm of what we do. And it takes the science that is being done by the International Anthropomorphic Research Project and it disseminates it to the larger public. So we wanted what we were doing and being funded to do to be accessible to furries themselves, to non-furries, to the media, and to other academics as well. So Furscience begins in 2016. And that name is a little bit easier. I mean, the International Anthropomorphic Research Project it did show up actually in Playboy in an article that was citing some of our work. But most of the time, Furscience is a little bit easier.
Right?
Yeah. No, that is easier. Yeah, I actually noticed. I tried going to I just say IR because that's but I tried going there and it was I think it was like a year and a half old in that it forwarded to the Furscience website.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, no, so it works. It works. Or I had to click a link or something. I don't know. So Furscience is, I mean, obviously, from what you're saying, it's this big, really big, actually, the science of the fur, basically. And you've got lots of different aspects because there's lots of different types of furs out there. There's transgender, there's autism, there's gay, there's straight, there's like everything you can imagine. So there's a lot of fun, cool things to study. And that's really cool.
Well, I was just going to say, we joke that we've started a new discipline. There wasn't like the anthropomorphic section of sociology that I could go and sign up to that department. We joke that we've come up with a new discipline, and I mean, a lot of what we're doing. I mean, if we've been working for going on 15 years now. In total, I mean, that's still brand new in terms of a discipline. And you think of hundreds of years of history of work that's been done in other disciplines. So I mean, we're just getting started. And in fact, most of the research that we have asked about has come from the furry community themselves. So we get asked a lot of questions. We say we have no idea what the answer is to that, but boy, is that a good question. Let's see if we can work it in one of our projects that's going to be coming up. So we're perpetually doing new stuff all the time, just gathering data. We do data gathering probably 4 times. We have probably about 4 or 5 different unique gatherings of data every year. So we've hit probably 30,000 furries by now from 70 different countries. It's been pretty extensive for just a small group of people who just found each other.
Right, exactly. Exactly. I mean, definitely when you study data, of course, you don't only study just the data, but you also study data trends. And trends can take a long time to develop and see. So definitely 15 years, that's a really young science actually. That's pretty cool and exciting.
It is, thank you. And we know like we're not always going to get it right the first time. So that's one of the reasons that you'll see a lot of repetition on our surveys. Replication is really important to science. So we want to make sure that we've done that. And if we ask the question slightly differently, will we get a different answer and we grow. So part of it is, having critiques of what we do, useful, helpful critiques, and then we can grow from that and start, including and and changing and altering and replicating. And I think that's, that's the mission of science, right? It's, it's, what you know until you know something better and more, that you've got more evidence for, and then you go with that. So yeah, we're very much follow that kind of method.
Cool. Yeah, the surveys, they're long. I've taken it once at AC 2018. I was not prepared for that, but I don't want to I don't want to shy any fur away from taking it because it is important and it was fun, but it was long and all kinds of oh my I didn't even know some of those questions existed in the world. That it was kind of an interesting thing to be asked some of those things.
If you want, I can tell you a quick funny story about
Yeah,
the
yeah.
question. So, in 2014, we did a study where we looked at the differences between furries, anime fans, and fantasy sport fans. And so, a lot of the questions that we would ask about furry identity and, like furries personas, we had to create an equivalent for these sport fans to answer, these fantasy sport fans to answer as well. And at the end of it, we got a lot of comments from the sampling that we had done. Like, this is the weirdest survey we have ever done. We're pretty sure that's right. So it was
Well,
fun.
I mean, furries ruin everything, so that's where that comes from. So how many you mentioned you do about 4-ish samplings per year, and I know, for example, you do these at cons. Of course, that's a great place to go because, well, that's where you're finding them all. But how many surveys these days do you think you get that have to be analyzed, and how long does it take to analyze all those?
Well, we have Nuka. Nuka is just a data god. And my words, not his, but he is absolutely a data god. And
Oh, it's a person.
yeah, Dr. Plant. Yeah, Dr. Courtney Plant.
I,
Up
I
in
was
Kidder.
like, I was like, what is this software that's Nuka? I want to know all about it.
He is his own
Oh, okay.
software, but yeah, he will actually put in 250,000 data
That's
points
a
into a data set
lot.
by hand and have it done in a short period of time. He's incredible with what he does, and and so we all have different roles that we play on the team. We all do different things, and Dr. Plant is our lead analyst. Dr. Rayson in Texas is just a writing machine. And I like to think of Kathy as the conscience of the team, and I'm the money person on the team. I'm the person who goes after getting the funding for what we're doing. So in combination, considering we all study different things and we all have different interests, it really has been just the most incredible supportive group of people to work and collaborate with that I could have ever have hoped for in my life.
So you kind of started hitting on this, but what field of sociology would you say it falls under if it fell under anything?
Oh, goodness. Well, I mean, I'm an identity researcher. So I would be classified as a neo-Ericksonian. So back in, if you ever took psychology, you might have read about Eric Erickson's 8 stages of epigenetic development. And stage 5 is about identity formation, and the virtue that comes from it is fidelity. And so, like having a true sense of yourself and being true to that sense of self. And so I fit into there. So sociology, I mean, sociology is very broad, like psychology. And I overlap a little bit with psychology in what I do because I study how individuals are affected by their society. Now, our social psychologists on the team also focus on identity, but a different kind of identity. So they would look at biographical identity and social identity, particularly. So classifications of people, like being in parts of groups and things. So I don't really fit that well under sociology, to be perfectly honest. And I know that like for Nuka, Courtney Plant, and Stephen Rayson, they're social psychologists, and we all have our areas outside of what we do. I mean, all of this sort of started as a side project. So I study identity, but I also study eating disorders. I study education transition. I just did a study with people at the University of Toronto, York University, and Western University on how unprepared students are for university, and we don't fault them at all for it, but it really is creating challenges for them when they try. By the way, funny story about that. my colleagues that I was working with on this other study of preparedness for university, they got a 5% response rate, and they were happy about it. And I have been so spoiled by furries, because honestly, I think when we went to Euroference, we had a 75% response rate.
Wow.
Holy cow.
I mean, it is astronomical. Like no one
Mhm.
gets the kinds of
Yeah.
responses, and it's all about the community. I mean, it's just amazing. It's just amazing the kinds of returns that we get on this stuff. So, having that kind of buy-in from a community is really, really wonderful. So it's just kind of funny to see the differences of what your typical social science response is. I mean, you're supposed to be thrilled if you get about 20%, and we regularly just blow that out of the
And
water.
then us furries, my well, I think it comes down to, we're, I think I say this on every single pupcast, but we're all one big family, and the community, we all support each other. We're like so accepting and supportive and everything. And I think we're just naturally really excited to, I mean, it's helping each other to take these surveys and to help you out and everything. And whether or not that's conscious or not when we're doing it, I think that's all part of why we're just kind of so helping or something.
I have a funny little story for you about Dr. Zach Marshall. So Zach is at the University of McGill up in Quebec, and he came to his first furry convention at Canforance in Ottawa in 2018. And so he was introduced on the stage and at opening ceremonies, and so I introduced him, and then within about 3 seconds, the furry community, this ballroom of 400 people, started chanting, one of us," and he was just floored. He had no idea what was going on. He said, "I don't understand this." So later that day, we had our research talk, and it was in the ballroom, and it was filled. And he said, "Sharon, I don't understand this. I can't get 6 people to come to an academic conference. I've never seen this. I've never seen anything like this," because everybody was engaged. And it was really funny because, later that day, he was out of his little lab coat that he was wearing, and I'm not sure that, people recognized him. And he went to a session, and the people beside him were talking about the Furscience, lecture that they had just watched, and he wasn't sure what to do. And it turned out this person started reciting basically slide by
Wow.
slide all of the things that we had talked about. And again, all he kept saying to me was, "Sharon, I have never seen anything like this. Like, this is just incredible." It just blew his mind away. And yeah, I'm like, "Yeah, welcome to For Science. This
What
is
are
great.
these
This
furries
community is
anywhere?
amazing."
Sign me up.
Right? Yeah.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, it really is. Like, I mean, I wanna stress this because I think it's really important that, when you're giving lectures, or giving results, I lecture, well, usually not in a pandemic, but I'm usually in a classroom for probably 12 hours a week lecturing to students. And there is nothing like the focus and the connection of the furry community when you're getting up to talk about the things that you always love. I mean, I love what I do in my classroom, but it's such a high, to get that kind of, response from people for the work, that you're doing. It really is awesome. It's just awesome.
Sometimes you can't say anything else than it's awesome.
Awesome.
So you mentioned that you've been doing this for 15 years now.
Yeah, I came on the team personally in 2011, so I'm on 9 years now doing furry
Okay,
research.
9 years. But the Furscience as a group or a discipline has been around for 15 years.
Yeah. Yeah, the International Anthropomorphic Research Project started in 2006 with Kathy Gerbasi.
Okay, all right. The IARP. IARP started in 2006.
Yeah.
So was there a premise for starting this? Is like we want to prove that furries are whack jobs, or we want to prove that furries are really, really great, or what was the impetus to get the whole thing going?
Well, it was really Kathy, getting this call from one of her colleagues that said, "I've got a kid in clinic, and I have no idea about them. I don't know anything. They call themselves a furry, and I don't know what that is." And, she the I mean, the issue was that there was nothing in the academic literature at all. So, in terms of peer-reviewed research, there wasn't anything at all. There was zero available. And so her main goal was just to do a study, document scientifically. Let's just see what it is. And some of the guiding questions came from that Vanity Fair article, like, is there veracity to any of these claims that they're making? And it turns out, no. I mean, that's where 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 one of the articles, the first article was really based on that. So and from there, I mean, we don't have a set agenda. I mean, we basically have questions that come to us, or we have questions ourselves, and we just set out to document it. So, I mean, first and foremost, we're scientists. We try and approach things in value neutral ways and just see what happens when you ask the questions, what comes back. And sometimes we have hypotheses, and sometimes they're supported, and sometimes they're not. But we ask, as you've seen, literally thousands of questions, over the years, just to find information and to just start documenting this amazing group of people.
Is there something that just has jumped out at you over the years and you're just like, wow, I just didn't expect that, either pro or con to the science?
So many things. Yeah, so many things.
Oh. So the answer is no, there's not one thing.
So many things. Okay. Well, first and foremost, I think, if when I'll be honest with you, when I came to the project, the only thing I knew about furries was what I had seen on CSI.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was my starting place. But I actually score off the charts on openness. Like as a personality characteristic. So I'm like, okay, well, even if that was true, okay, well, let's just see, right? Like that was always I'm always that kind of person. There's like, well, I want to know more about that. That sounds really fascinating. When the opportunity came up for me to join the International Anthropomorphic Research Project, I jumped right in on that. And I think the most important thing for me was showing just how wrong that was. That was really great to see, like, that there wasn't any evidence for what they had put together. These screenwriters' imaginations had come up with this narrative that just wasn't supported. Furries aren't broken people. And I just, it was just really, I really enjoyed that piece of just that introduction of it. And my first two conventions were big conventions that I went to. They were the Dallas convention and then Anthrocon. But it was actually the third convention that I went to where I really got some insight into this community. And it was actually Oklacon. And I'm sad that Oklacon is gone, but Oklacon was a place where you would go and sit in Romano State Park for a week and just get to know people. And so there were campfires, and there were cabins, log cabins, and there's like communal dinners, and it was just that place where I could do focus groups and interviews, and so really starting to move into more qualitative work, which I'm quantitatively trained, and historically I've always been a quantitative researcher. But it was really that qualitative piece that allowed me to get some insight into what this community was all about. And I'll just give you a couple of examples. So my research question I had like an interview schedule, and my first question was, tell me about the furry fandom. I mean, that's not a leading question. Like that's about as neutral as you get. Tell me about the furry fandom. And I had so many people who would talk about how the fandom had saved their lives. And it was so striking to me. And it could be for lots of different reasons. It could be that they were grieving for the loss of somebody, and this community had given them a place, a shoulder to cry. It could be that they were broke and they had found that people were just kind to them. It could be that they were terrified because they were part of the LGBTQ community, and they were in red state Oklahoma, and their families were really giving them a hard time about it. And it was astounding to me just to hear what this community meant. Like it was palpable, the sense of appreciation and the depth of friendship that people had derived from being part of this community. And man, was that striking for me. Like it was so strong, because it's funny, maybe for people to hear this, but at this point of the game, I keep thinking of all the ways that if the rest of the world took lessons from the furry fandom, the world would be a better place.
There you go.
Because they figured out some stuff along the way about how to be kind, about how not to discriminate against each other. And of course, there's furry drama, and we get that. People are like, "There's so much furry drama, you don't really know." And of course, we know that there's furry drama. But overwhelmingly, what I see is a community that respects each other and wants to support each other, and I think that's outstanding. It's just outstanding. So that's one of the things I think that was most striking for me. I also think it was actually probably around 2014, 2015. I was at the Toronto convention, and I was just sitting and watching, the convention go by, and I noticed that there were disproportionately high numbers of people who would identify as trans or non-binary. And what was really super neat for me to see was that no one cared. It wasn't a thing. It didn't matter at all. They were just being them. And I thought, well, that's neat. So then I started, this is when I started getting interested in trying to understand transgender well-being within the furry community. And I started looking at some of the data that we had, and it was pretty striking because especially when you start looking at the comparisons of some of the other fandoms that we do, but just looking broadly as well, at the the lived experience and some of the outcomes of people who are transgender. It's really sad. There's not very many studies that have big numbers of transgender folks in their studies, but the one, I mean, the suicide attempt rate, the discrimination that's been faced, just the terrible circumstances and how that impacts people, was really heartbreaking. And then to see that you have those kinds of discriminated against folks who are finding a place and thriving, was really exciting. So as a researcher, I've always been interested in what makes things better, as opposed to like what makes things go to hell in a handbasket. I've always been interested in like why did people get better from an eating disorder?
I like your optimism there. That's a good way to look at things, I think.
So those are the kinds of things, to answer your question about like what's been striking to me. It was just about how great this community is, and how it seems to foster resilience in the face of really difficult stigma and marginalization. I think those are just outstanding features of this community.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, I mean, like I said, I don't know of any other fandom or community that is more supportive and accepting of each other. And I've seen it too, just like you said, like people would say, I'm trans, but does anyone else care? No, because that's who you are. And oh, why should anyone worry about that? So, yeah, definitely one of the things I've seen a lot in the
Yeah.
fandom, of course, especially when you go to cons and see how open, open everyone is about their furriness and their gaiety or their whatever it may be. And that's always wonderful to see.
Well, it was pretty exciting to experience one thing, and that was at Anthrocon 2017. I was recruiting into the Furscience Universal Recruitment Project, and I was going down the queue of people lined up for registration. And I came across two women, for the purposes of this conversation. They were trans women, and I said, "Would you like to be part of this for science thing? We're doing this. Creating this database." And they said, "Well, we're not furries, but we just know that we can be here, and no one will be a jerk to us."
Oh, that's awesome. That's so awesome.
Wow.
And so that's why they had come to Pittsburgh to be part of this to this thing. So I thought, well, that says a lot, right? I mean, it says everything.
Right? That's amazing.
That says like a lot. I hadn't heard I'm not surprised to hear that, but I had not heard of something like that before. So that's yay furry. That's I say vote for the fur.
We need our first furry president. That's what we need.
Yes.
Well, there are some out there that are like Taven for president
There you
2020.
go. There you go. You'd be chasing the squirrels all over the South Lawn, though. That'd be a problem.
I would be. I wouldn't get really anything done because I'd be too busy chasing the squirrels, definitely. So, how can we find out more about Furscience? Is it just the Furscience website, or are there other good resources we should go to find out?
Well, furscience.com, of course, is the main hub. So we post all our studies. We've got a section on there, furscience.com /participate or participant. Both of them will go there. And we list all our studies there. So we have quite a number of open studies on the go that we've been recruiting in. So some of our studies are smaller numbers of people percentage wise of the fandom. So we've left them open for a long time and continue to recruit into them. So the study that we've got on theory entropy has been open since 2017. The one on autism about the same time frame as well. And they're qualitative studies that people can go in and just write about their experiences. We've set the theory entropy one up with coding so that people can come back in and they write up a little code, like it was like what's the first 3 3 letters of your mother's name and your dog's name or something like that. But it's so we can match up data without having to know people's identities. It's all, we've got lots of different questions in there about that. So that community is very small within the fandom. But we're starting to we're starting to uncover some pretty interesting things about the Therian community, which is actually fairly misunderstood within the furry community too. So pretty excited about that piece. Back to the question though of like, where could you go? So Furscience is it, but we also are looking to grow our social media presence. So we have a Twitter, which is Furscience, and an Instagram that's been a little bit neglected, Furscience, and Facebook, which I'm not sure if it's dying a death yet or not.
It's still out there.
Still there. And so we're on there as well. Now, the reason that matters, and then the website traffic, is that we are funded. Our research is funded by the Canadian government. We have been very fortunate in that we've had a lot of support from our individual institutions. So Waterloo, the University of Waterloo, and Renison University College, which is part of the University of Waterloo, they've been really wonderful with giving me startup funds. So Furscience was started through that funding, and then from that we've been able to springboard that into bigger funding from the federal government in Canada. And so part of our dissemination is a metric that's used to justify that kind of funding, and it gets used in calculations for whether we should get future funding as well. So we're always trying to extend the reach of what we have as far as Twitter goes. So when we have a finding, we can pop it up. We get questions. We can pop up answers for them, and all of that's really important. We have a new article come out. We can disseminate it there as well, because we know that is it like 1.6 people read an article that's written by academics? Like, no one cares. We know that. But if we have a place like furscience.com, we can get a lot more people to care. And so that's actually very appealing for public funding, that what we're doing in our ivory tower is actually being disseminated at a much, much bigger level.
I would imagine that you get a lot more people and furs reading your papers than any other type of these type of papers anywhere, based on, the 400 people in the room saying one of us, one of us. I will say this right up front. A lot of it's dry reading. It's not, it's not a novel that you're going to enjoy reading about. There's a lot of data. I mean, I have that one, the Furscience book that you guys put out, which is,
yeah, we need to update that. Yeah,
it's like 400 pages long or something like that. It's massive. It's massive.
Yeah.
I've read, I think Kathy wrote it, or maybe it was Courtney, the article in Furries Among Us.
Oh, yeah.
The first volume. Yeah. So I've read that. And, or actually, there's, I think, 2 things in there. And I've read that. And I like data. I'm a mathy pup, so I like data. So I, kind of was probably a little bit more involved in what I read than Mike, for example. But
well, it was interesting reading, but I mean, it was just like, oh, okay, go through it. Yeah.
So we've participated in Furries Among Us 1, Furries Among Us 2, and Furries Among Us 3. And
there's a 3. I didn't even know there's a 3.
It just came out. So it's published by Thurston Howell. And
not the third.
Not the third. Thurston Howell, and you know what kind of howl it would be for it to be furry. And it's we published 6 chapters in that one.
Oh wow!
So we're as a team, we're happy to support the furry community and furry projects that are ongoing. And so I wrote. We sort of each take the lead on a different topic, and then we work on all the papers together. So it really is a beautifully collaborative process. And so I think the one that I wrote this time, I had my student publish as second author on it, and it was on the LGBTQ community. So I think she is how would she describe herself? A queer woman, I think is how she would describe herself. So it was nice to have that input. Like we're scientists, but we also like epistemologically, we believe that we can meet a lot of different preferences. So
definitely.
What I mean specifically by that is, on our prime team, I'm not a furry. Kathy's not a furry, she says, and jury's out. I don't know. We'll see. And Stephen also says he's not a furry, but we'll see. And then Courtney is a furry. So we've, if you really are into epistemologically that value neutral, sort of removed, dispassionate and disinterested kind of approach, I mean, we all sort of come into that way. But if you believe that lived experience is central to intellectual inquiry at this time, and I think there's a growing sense that it is. Then we have that lived experience on our core team as well. We work with the community as well, and this is I think it makes us better as a research team to have to have both ends of that.
Of course, you're at cons, and you actually you don't just like go around and hand out surveys to people. You actually also have a Furscience booth. So, what kind of things can furs see and get at your booths?
The Furscience booth, yeah. I just love that booth so much. It's beautiful. I had nothing to do with it, and I love the way that it looks, and I think it shows that we really care. I mean, that we've got buy-in, that we're in this for real. I think that's sort of the sentiment that I get from people who see the booth. It's because it's large and colorful and beautiful.
It is. Lots of little toys and stuff.
Yeah. So when people come to our booth, we certainly have a lot of different projects on the go. So if it's Anthrocon, we might be working with 4 or 5 researchers, professors from different institutions. They'll use that booth as a place where people can find out how to participate. We also do things like spin to win. Again, with this intention of trying to grow our social media reach, we want people to go on the website, but also go on the Twitter and the Facebook and the Instagram and the YouTube channel. I forgot the YouTube channel. Please follow us and subscribe on YouTube for
Yes.
science. These are all mechanisms for us to disseminate what we're finding scientifically and academically. And so a part of that is building a connection, face-to-face trust. There's nothing like face-to-face trust, right? If you're going to be telling somebody about your life, you want to know who they are. And I think that our presence at conventions has been essential. They also can learn about the research talks that we give. So we are absolutely consistent with giving research talks when we go to a convention. And that's so people can see what we do with the data. Why would you trust researchers right away? I mean, so we want to prove what we do with our data so people can see, and then they can decide for themselves, making informed choices about if they want to participate in our work or not, because we believe very strongly in the informed consent. And so part of that, all of that is about creating informed consent for our participants and a degree of comfort with them and building a rapport and trust so that we have good data. And I don't mean that good as in like value positive data. I mean good as in sound, reliable, valid data.
Sound data, correct. Yeah. So for our listeners, they can't see you because we don't record the video, but you're wearing a shirt that says "Furry Woke." So explain that for us, please. What does that mean?
Well, okay, so Furscience will absolutely poke fun at itself all of the time.
Oh, yeah.
And we do this for a lot of reasons, but I think it's really important when you're a furry researcher to first and foremost give a wink and a nod to the furry community. That we get that the community is a bit eccentric, and that we're not above sort of poking fun at ourselves as researchers and scientists. So we made these shirts with the furry woke on them, and we use them for promotion to help with our dissemination of research findings, to get people to know what we're doing. Most important is that people know that Furscience exists, and this is part of that project, is trying to get people to know that Furscience exists. So when you go to the booth and you can spin to win, it might be something like a little pencil, it has Furscience on it, or ribbon, thanks for participating, that you get. But the idea is that people are aware that Furscience exists. So the furry woke T-shirts were a bit of a tongue-in-cheek poke at ourselves, just furry woke, and especially it's even funnier now that woke is being
Right?
used ironically, and so it's even
It's
worse
even
and
funnier at the
funnier
same
at this
time,
point.
right?
That
Yeah.
So this pup doesn't know what this is. So woke's a
Yes,
thing.
woke is a thing.
woke's a past
Well,
thing
yeah,
at this
it's up and
point.
down.
So
So
Yeah, so woke is what the young people say to describe when they're in the know. That they have they're
To
Yeah.
be woke, yo.
yeah, that they're well informed, that they've got the data. Let's say you're male and you say something that's very gender equitable. That's supportive of women's rights and things. People would say you're woke.
You've
And so the
you've awakened up. I get it
yeah,
now.
you're
Okay.
woke. So the furry woke is it's a
Yeah,
joke.
yeah. See, you can just take it from there.
It's a joke. It's nice. It's nice. Cool, cool. I want one though. I want a shirt. I want to get a shirt that says furry woke now. So
When I get into my office, at the university, I can try and find you one.
Okay.
Send me your address. I can send out one.
okay. All right. So let's wrap this up a little bit. We've been talking for almost an hour. So if you had to give as a sociologist, as a anthrozoologist, if someone came to you and said, "I'm thinking about being a furry," what would you tell them?
Amazing. I
Okay.
actually yeah, no, I actually said this on Jenny McCarthy, because, her kid, I think, is a furry, and so she found out about it and was, like, really worried about it, and it was really great. I gotta tell you, like, one of the proud moments of my life is, changing Jenny McCarthy's mind with science in the space of about 22 minutes, because she had a full turnaround on that, and I wear that as a badge of honor.
Nice.
But when, if I had a kid, this is what I said to her on the show. If I had a child, if my husband and I had kids, and the quote unquote worst thing that ever happened was they came home and said, "I'm a furry," we'd be high-fiving ourselves going, "We're homemade," right? Like we're like
You did something
yeah.
right.
Yeah, yeah, we're home free. Sorry. So I would say for somebody to answer your question, for someone who wants to be a furry, I would say just put yourself out there. The community is really receptive to people who say, I'm looking to meet some people. I just saw this on Facebook a couple days ago, without the details of where it was, but it was, someone said they moved to an area and there's like, I'm new in blank area and my fursona is this. I'm looking to meet some people, and there were about 85 comments on there about, "Oh, my fursona is this, and I live in this area," and it was instant. I mean, it was instant. And when I in about 2015, 2016, I was doing some work on studies of bullying, and we did quantitative work that showed that furries are bullied at about twice the level of population controls. But we also determined through qualitative research, this was something that I started doing, what that meant to the furry community, because I wasn't sure if they were being bullied because they were furries or not, and that does happen. But more than that, people had been bullied before they became furries, and the surprise of that research for me was what that meant to how they would treat people in the community. The fact that they had histories of bullying meant that they became highly protective of having an open and inclusive environment where people could just be themselves. And so if I were giving advice to someone who said I want to be a furry, I would say be who you are, and just be honest with people, be authentic. The furry community is incredibly authentic. The other thing that I would say as a researcher who studied this is, invest time in the fursona. The fursona, this avatar-like representation of self, is deeply meaningful, particularly for someone who's, hasn't quite made their transition to adulthood yet. This introspective activities that people do to get to know who they are and develop this persona are really developmentally meaningful outside of the furry fandom. So one of the surprises for me as a researcher was to see how this thing that is misunderstood by the public has such deep benefits to the person who's engaged in it. So the persona and having a clear, particularly a persona that involves idealized versions of self, resulted in people scoring higher on these identity measures of knowing who they were, not including their persona. And so that was really interesting. There's decades of research to show that knowing who you are has all kinds of benefits in terms of oh my goodness, everything. Like this is an entire field of developmental psychology. That having a strong sense of identity is really, really essential to well-being, mental health well-being, physical well-being, academic success. All of this, it's all really, really important. So I would say pick carefully and think deeply about the fursona, and then use that as a tool to engage with other members of the community, because it's the fursona is used to ease communication. So that stuff that gets a little tricky when the world is trying to when people are trying to meet each other, it's made much smoother and easier by engaging with the fursona.
Yeah. Wow.
It really is. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. That's incredible stuff.
Which is, by the way, just one thing. That's one of the reasons that I went to get an MSW. What I've observed without having the data for it was that there seemed to be some sort of healing of trauma through the fursona. And so this is as close to hypothesis as I would have on this. But I think there's something meaningful that's happening there. And if I'm going to do that study, then do it ethically, right? Which is the whole reason for the MSW degree, to do that kind of work ethically. But I do think I don't even think we've started to even scratch the surface on the utility of something like a fursona for general well-being and health. I think it's a key piece of this. The community, the support, the friendship is really important, but that persona really matters. It's really exciting as a researcher to see.
Well, we're glad to help you out then.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Dr. Roberts, it's been a joy and a pleasure to have you on our show. I mean, we're a podunk little podcast, but we are so thrilled to have you on and chat about all this stuff. And our listeners, I'm sure at this point are just writing down all sorts of notes and how they're going to research out to you and read all these things that we've talked about and get things going. And I know that you're busy and it's late where you are because you're far across the land.
I'm delighted to have had the chance to talk about the research. It's always a pleasure to do it. I genuinely love this work. I genuinely love the community, and I think one of the nicest surprises that's come out of it is that I have a whole new set of friends from
Yeah.
across the planet
Oh, yeah.
that I never would have ever expected to have, and so I feel really extraordinarily fortunate to be accepted into this community as I would classify myself as an invited ally into the community at this point. So
Or furry adjacent or something.
Furry adjacent. Yes, there you go.
yeah, the invited ally, I think, is the term that I most identify with. These things change as your wokeness
Yeah.
moves forward. All these terms will change, of course. But to me, the community is just lovely, and I have science in my back pocket, for all this stuff. So that it becomes easy to talk about the community and how people have historically got it wrong. I mean, the ebb and flow of people's lives is so much more interesting than screenwriters' imaginations.
Yeah, I mean, some of it you can't even make some of this stuff up. So
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's incredible. Okay, well, thank you very much for being on our show. It's been a pleasure, and hopefully we will get to see you at a con sometime.
I hope so.
I would love to. We try and get to as many conventions as we can. Our funding is limited, and every dollar is accounted for with the plan that is proposed beforehand. So the things that have allowed us to get out a bit more when we've been invited by conventions and have like guest of honor status or things like that, those things have really helped us to be able to spread the word of Furscience more in person. And we've really actually enjoyed our virtual conventions as well. We've done the Confuzzled, the Eurofurence, the one in Toronto, Infernal Equinox. We did a virtual convention
Oh, yeah.
as well there. So those are, yeah,
And virtual is a whole lot cheaper. So
it
Yeah.
is. That's true.
In
It
many
is true.
ways.
We were really disappointed. Alamo Furry Convention, we were supposed to be the guests of honor there this year, like pretty well, like this month. So we are disappointed that things are going on the way that they are, but hopefully it won't be forever, and we'll be back on planes and getting to places and
And hugging each other again. Wag, wag.
all right. Well, thank you very much for being on our show. We will see you down the road a piece.
Down the road. Bark, bark.
thank you so much. It's been lovely.
Wow, that's a lot
There
of
was a
information.
lot of
Holy
things there. Lots of,
mackerel!
I mean, really cool, interesting things, but all
Right?
over the place, like in every direction.
That's
So
very
that's pretty
cool.
cool.
That's very cool. I'm amazed at, and it goes back to everything we've said week after week after week. This community is like no other.
No, you can't even deny that. I mean, that's
I mean, science has proved that our community is better than everybody else's. So take that, everybody else's community.
yeah. There you
Take that,
go.
everybody else.
Take that. Yeah. No, yeah, and the Furscience website, it has a lot of fun information and research, and these publications they have out. The book you said, there's lots of good information out there. So, all you furs out there, check out the fun, interesting, cool data and research that Furscience has been doing for us and continues to do. And if you see them at a con, give them a
Yep.
hug.
And
Say
if you go on
thanks.
their website, you will find there, I think they are still accepting people for a couple of their studies. So feel free to sign up and do their studies. It will be a time commitment, as Tabin has said.
Yes.
So keep that in mind. You'll probably need a couple of hours to spend doing their surveys, but they're very in depth and very, very well put together.
And interesting, very interesting too.
Yep.
As I said, I enjoyed it when I did do it.
And now that they're online, you can take your time and do it. You're not pressured to go. And I'm sure that when you were doing your survey at a con, people kept trying to come up to and hug you while you were doing the survey.
After a little bit of time, I realized, okay, this isn't working. So I found a corner and hid so I could finish it. Yeah.
I know what happens at a con with you.
You do. You've seen this before once or twice.
So what would normally take a regular fur an hour would take a Tabin fur 3 hours.
3 or 4, yeah, something like that. It's an afternoon well spent.
Yes, that's true. That's true. All right. Well, shall we say we should get to our next segment? What do you say?
I say we should get to our next segment.
Furries in the news.
Furries in the news.
Not a lot in the news. As we all know, the COVID has zapped all of the furry things in the news. I was on the con website for upcoming events. Of course, further confusion usually happens in January, and we know that it is not happening this year in 2021 because of silly old COVID, but they are going to do an online convention. First fully digital online furry convention, and they're basing it around BoJack Horseman.
That's cool. I love BoJack. That's awesome.
I do, and they're calling it Hollywoof.
Of course, yeah.
Because Hollywoo.
For all you furs that don't know, right? Hollywoo is in the BoJack, so that's
yes, because they stole the D.
Oh, that's right. That was an early episode. Have you seen all the episodes? I didn't know that. Yeah. No, I finished off, I know, a little bit ago, but yeah, good show. Loved it.
Very dark at the end, though.
In fact, I want to say halfway through the whole thing, so maybe like around season 3, it started getting a little dark.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's like, wow, they really taken a turn here. In the BoJack Horseman series, they have a game show called Celebrities. What do they know? What can they know? Do they know stuff? We'll find out. And that was the name of the game show. Well, that's what the name of the FurCon is going to be for FC in 2021.
That's awesome.
Hollywood.
I love it.
Furries and celebrities. What can they know? Can they know stuff? We'll find out.
Because that's what they say on the show. So that's pretty cool.
And
cool.
It says, stay tuned. There's really no other information then. If you go to the FC website, that's what you'll see. There's no other information at this point, but I'm really excited because I haven't attended any online cons yet. But I think I want to attend that one.
Maybe I will see what kind of submission stuff they have, because maybe I'll submit some video or something that I already have, maybe a story time or a poetry thing or one of the things I had in the Masquerade the last few years or something.
That'd be kind of fun. That's it for Furries in the News. So that brings us to our math section today.
That's right. Last week I had a story, and now we're going to go to a math.
And before we go into this, I want to say to everybody, if you have a math issue, if you have a math issue, get a tissue.
I think a lot of people do, actually.
You can write in and ask, and Tabin will answer the math questions.
And if I don't know the answer off the top of my fluff, I'll figure it out and tell you stuff. Or if you just have a question about some general math thing or something, I'd love to talk to you about it. So yeah, please write in your math questions.
And if you have a favorite children's storybook from your childhood or your puphood or your cubhood or whatever it was when you were, and you'd like him to read it on the air, send us the title and we'll research it out and have him read it.
But yeah, no, I definitely love to do that too. I wag, so please do, every fur.
So what is your math for today?
This week, I want to talk about different levels of infinity.
How can you have levels of infinity? Infinity is just infinity.
That's what people think, but actually there's different levels of infinity, and it's kind of mind-blowing and really cool to think about. So before every fur leaves, because Please just hear me out. It's really interesting and very cool. I'm going to talk about sets of numbers. So you have a finite set of things. That's, you can count them 3, 5, 7, 10, I think we know what that is. And you can, of course, have an infinite set of things and an infinite amount of stuff like, the numbers, the integers. It's an infinite set of numbers. It just keeps going on and on. That's what infinity really means. It means there's no end. There's no bound. You just keep going on.
Okay.
Well, it turns out even there's kind of different types of infinity. So, for example, the set of integers, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, the negative numbers, things like that, that forms what we call a countably infinite set. And it's just like you would think, countably. It means you can count them. A way to think about a countably infinite set is you can list them all down. It would take for a really long time, but you can actually write them all out. I mean,
would it take an infinite amount of time?
It would definitely take an infinite amount of time.
Okay.
But you can just start writing down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, just writing down the list. Kind of the next step up in terms of what numbers are rational numbers. That's just a fancy way of saying fractions. So 1/2, 3/4, 62, 100 millionths or something like that. So just fractions of one number over another. Okay, so there's an infinite amount of those. I mean, duh, it goes on and on forever. But you can actually list them out. You can write them down in some sort of order. If you want, you can write them all down and you don't miss one. In fact, there's an actual way to write them out in a methodical manner so that you list them all and you don't miss one. And that's not actually too hard to believe. So that's another example of a countably infinite set of numbers.
Okay.
The next kind of level up is what's called the quote unquote real numbers. So for any that doesn't know, a real number is just any number, any decimal number. I mean, it could have an integer in front of it, but just decimals and stuff. Anything you can write down. 0.1, 0.15, 0.69243, 0.4443240, and these could be infinitely long string. I'm going to use the word strings of numbers after a decimal point. And there's obviously infinitely many of them. And so then you think, okay, well, can I write them down in a list? Does this form an accountable set of numbers? What do you think, Barely? Can you write all these numbers down?
I'm going to say no.
Then you would be correct.
Okay.
This is actually what's forms an uncountable set of numbers. It's actually not possible to write down every single one of these real numbers in a list. There will always be something more that you can't write down, which is a little weird to think about because like all the fractions, they're a little weird, but you can write all those down in the list. Why can't you write all these decimals down in a list? I want to tell you why. So first, and I'm even going to go simpler. Think of infinitely long, I'm going to use the word strings of zeros and ones. So a whole bunch of zeros and ones, in a row. So let's say you could write all those down in a list. So just start writing them down. Write down one infinitely long string of zeros and ones. It doesn't even matter what it is. 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1, 0, 0, 0, 0, whatever. Okay, you wrote that down.
Okay.
Next line on the list, write another one. That's not the same one.
Okay.
Write anything down. 1, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 1. Do it again. Write your third one down. And so you're starting to make a list of all these infinitely long strings of zeros and ones. So from that infinite list, remember, this is still an infinite list you've written down. From that, I'm going to tell you how to produce an infinite string of zeros and ones that's not already on the list. Yeah, see, now this is crazy to think about, that you've written down this infinitely long list, and I'm going to tell you how to make one that's not on that list, even though it's an infinitely long list.
Okay.
So here's what you do. And it's not some abstract theoretical thing. It's something that actually happens. So take the first string of zeros and ones in your list and take the first digit. It's either a 0 or a 1.
Okay.
Take that and flip it. If you know binary arithmetic, you're basically adding 1, which means if it's a 1, turn it to a 0. If it's a 0, turn it to a 1. Write that number down. That's the first digit in this new infinitely long string that we're going to write.
Okay.
Now go to the second string on your list. Now go to the second digit over. Do the same thing. Flip it. Write it down. So now you've got 2 digits in this new string that I'm telling you how to construct.
I see what you're doing here.
You see what I'm doing? Yeah. So then, of course, you go to the third string on your list, go to the third digit over, write that down. Keep doing this. You've got kind of a diagonal thing you're writing down. You're basically writing down the diagonal digits.
Yes.
What you've written down, that is not already on your infinitely long list. Because is it the first string on the list? Well, no, it's not, because by construction, the first digit is not the same. Is it the second string on your list? Well, no, because by construction, the second digit is not the same, and so on and so forth. So believe it or not, there it is, a pretty easy way to write down something that was on the list. And now, okay, so just take that up to the real numbers. What are they? All your decimals are numbers 0 through 9. You do the exact same diagonal thing. If you get a 9, just change it to a 0. That's all. Other than that, just add 1 to whatever the digit is. And in the same way, you can produce this number that's not real number that's not already on the list. And by the way, this process is something called the Cantor diagonalization argument, which is very, very powerful in different branches of mathematics. What we've done is we've shown that the real numbers are not countable. The official mathy word is it's an uncountable set. You cannot list all these things down. So it's a higher level of infinity. It contains the fractions, but there's so much more than the fractions. And it's just, wow. And so then kind of the thought is like, are there like bigger levels of infinity than that? What if you took, what if instead of taking like, this is kind of a one-dimensional thing, right? What if you took a two-dimensional thing? Like you had, even think zeros and ones. You had infinitely many in one direction, and then in the vertical direction, you had zeros and ones. So you've got a two-dimensional grid of zeros and ones. It turns out that that level of infinity is exactly the same as the one-dimensional case.
Really?
Exactly the same. There's the same quote unquote number of numbers. Well, about 3 dimensions, same thing. 4 dimensions, same thing. Okay, so is there anything more? It turns out there is a level of infinity higher than that. Higher than, it's what's called the cardinality of the continuum, is the quote unquote number, the size of how big the real numbers are. The next level is, if you know about exponentiation, like exponents and stuff, 2 to the that power is the next level. So that contains, but it's so much more than the real numbers. I wonder if you can go further. Well, yes, you can.
Of course you can. Yes, of course. Yes.
And you would not be surprised to hear me say there's an infinite amount of levels of infinity. And this blows the mind. And this is amazing to think about. You get like paradoxes from this stuff, and you get all this cool stuff. Any further that's interested in this stuff, you might look into something called the continuum hypothesis, transfinite numbers. This is all part of a branch of math called set theory. And it's really, really cool and interesting. And set theory is what all of math is based on. It's really cool stuff.
That is really cool stuff. So is there a symbol for, because the infinity symbol is like a letter 8 on its side.
Right.
Is there a symbol for infinity? Do you like intersect the 2 8s, one upside, one down?
Like a clover or something?
Like a clover leaf.
Actually, there is a standard notation. There's Aleph Naught, so the letter Aleph from the Hebrew alphabet. It looks kind of like a funny N with a subscript 0. That's Naught is kind of the common way to refer to the subscript 0. Aleph Naught is the quote-unquote number. It's what's called a cardinal number. The number that is referred to as the cardinality of the real numbers. And then the next level up is Aleph 1, then Aleph 2, then Aleph 3, and so on and so forth.
Well, that's very interesting. I always love all the math stuff because I always feel like a small kindergartner whenever you talk about math, because I'm like, wow, that's amazing.
Well, there's like so much math out there and so much cool stuff like that infinity thing, which is, you don't have to be really big mathy or anything to understand it. And they're really cool ideas. And there's a lot of cool math out there that, people don't really realize is out there because you don't know it unless you're into it. So I hope all you furs are like all the math that I talk about, because I think it's really cool. I love talking about it, and I love expanding your minds and knowledge.
It is now time to get to our RBJs, or our really bad jokes.
Okay. Oh my cow. So let's go from infinity and different levels and blowing the mind to
really bad jokes. Yes.
That's all I can say about that.
So, Tabin, you have some jokes for us from your really bad joke book.
I do. I do. So, Barely, let me know. What do you think you would do if you ran out of gas in the jungle?
I don't know. What would I do if I ran out of gas in the jungle?
Apparently, the best thing to do is to put a tiger in your tank.
I
Which
know what
I
that
don't
is.
actually get that.
That must be an old book. Way back when there was a gas company, and their slogan was, "Put a tiger in your tank."
They're really reaching. Well, it looks
Well-
like actually this book was written in 1968.
There you go.
Oh my cow.
I have a phobia of speed bumps,
Oh, you do?
but I'm slowly getting over it.
Oh, yeah, good for you, good for you. Yeah, it takes time. You know, once I heard of this man that lived on one side of the river, and the store was on the other side. The bridge across the river could only hold 200 pounds. The man weighed 198, and he bought 3 coconuts that weighed 1 pound each. How did he get across the bridge?
I'm guessing he walked.
Well, that would have been the smart thing. Because what he did was he juggled the coconuts because one was always in the air.
How's that funny?
That's the joke. Actually, the joke.
That's really a riddle, but riddles are something that logically can solve, but a joke is supposed to have a punchline.
This didn't have a punchline. It had a coconut line, I guess. I don't know.
Okay, so, I gave away all my dead batteries today.
Oh, you did?
Free of charge.
They sure were. So how do you feel? You know, fireflies have emotions. They really do, actually. This is
Do
a
they?
scientifically proved fact. And so there's this firefly, and poor guy, he ran into a fan. How do you think he felt about that?
I don't know. How did he feel about running into a fan?
He was delighted. That was actually okay. I'm okay with that one, actually.
So, I work for state government,
Mm-hmm.
and every once in a while we have to reset our passwords on our computer. My IT department called me today, and they said, I need to pick a new password, and it needs to be 8 characters long.
It was time. Okay.
So I picked Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs. That's 8 characters.
That's a character. That was like a riddle and a joke at the same time.
At the same time.
It
yes.
had a very logical conclusion. So speaking of Santa Claus,
Were we?
apparently we were. So do you know why Santa Claus has a garden?
It must be a cold garden, but what does he have?
Well, he likes to ho ho ho. I mean, he does like to spade too, but I mean on Christmas, he doesn't like come down your chimney and say spade, Merry Christmas.
No, he says ho ho ho, yes. So I've thought about moving to Switzerland.
Oh, you did?
There's not a lot of benefits to living in Switzerland, but their flag is a big plus.
I mean, because it is. It's very important to know what the most disagreeable month to a soldier is. And do you know which month this is?
I have no idea.
It's a long march.
I got nothing
Okay,
else.
let's just stop there.
That brings us to our final segment
Final segment
of trivia.
Yay, trivia. Things I don't know. Although I think, was it last week? I actually did. I think I got them all right somehow.
You did. You got, there was a lot right. You got a lot
That's
of
right.
dings instead of buzzers. Yes.
The buzzers. And I used I remember I used puppy logic, and that's what actually got things right. So I'll try that again.
You used puppy logic and something you called fuzzy logic.
It's
Yes.
an actual thing, yeah.
It's an actual thing within the IT world. All right. Would you like the category of geography, entertainment, history, literature, science, or sports?
Let's start with history, because I actually know not much about history, so that's a good place to start.
Okay. The question is, known as the father of New France, which French explorer founded Quebec City on July 3rd, 1608?
There is so much specifics in that. Okay, so puppy logic. Quebec. So he wants to come back to France. No, Quebec is in Canada, but we'll say France because puppy logic. So he wants to come back, and 1968, that was the year.
No, 1608.
1608. Oh, that makes a big difference. So in 1608, that was the year that the Newlywed Game was found. And so we want to come back to the Newlywed Game. And what other piece of information is there?
He was the father of New France.
And he's a father of New France. So Jerry Lewis, I think, was the father of New France. So Jerry Lewis must be the answer.
Okay, well, actually, it was Samuel de Champlain.
I was so not
close.
close. I was
so
not
close. You were just almost there.
I was
Almost
almost there. I mean, it came down to the 1609 versus 1608 thing. So
right, yeah. I mean, if it was 1609, it clearly would have been
Jerry Lewis, yeah, not Huey Lewis, because that would be the news.
All right. So geography, entertainment. Literature, science, or sports?
Let's do literature.
Literature. All right. Oh, you should know. This is a furry-centric one, actually.
I might not even have to use puppy logic.
In Rudyard Kipling's book, The Jungle Book,
Oh, okay.
what kind of creature was Baloo?
Oh, he was a big bear.
You are correct. He was a bear.
Yay! I knew that. That's actually something this pup just knows.
Our final category will be geography, entertainment, science, or sports.
Let's go science, because I like sciencey.
Like science? When can an object have kinetic friction acting on it?
Do that again?
When can an object have kinetic friction acting upon it?
Okay, must have something to do with a kitty, because kinetic, and okay, so kitty's like yarn, so the object must be a ball of yarn. And so say exactly that phrase again. I need to know exactly how it's said.
When can an object have kinetic friction acting on it?
Friction. So that's like what happens when the kitty rubs against the yarn ball, and that happens all the time. So I'm going to say the answer is an object can have kinetic action on it in 1608.
Almost correct. It's when it's moving. So if it's moving from 1608 to 1609, you are correct.
There you go. The puppy logic wins every time.
And you are not the weakest link, by the way.
Hopefully the fluffiest, but yeah, not
the
the
fluffiest
weakest.
link. Which, did you know that show came back?
Oh, really? Did it? I did not know that.
Yes.
Okay, that was like what, 10 years ago or something?
10, 20 years ago. Yeah, it was a long time ago.
Well.
It's a pretty good game show.
I get the questions wrong all the time.
I should have said this back in media, but I did watch the first episode of The Weakest Link last night.
Oh, you did? Oh, how is it? I'll have to say, I'll check that out. That's pretty cool.
Well, Tabin, that looks like it brings us to the end.
Oh, bark, bark.
Bark, bark, indeed. You know, I always have a good time working with you on this podcast. It's a lot of fun. I get to see you and hear you every week.
Yay, or not.
Actually, a lot of furs are very jealous. I get things on Telegram all the time that I get to talk to you all the time.
Oh,
they're very jealous of me talking to you. So it's like, that's kind of cool.
That's very cute and sad and adorable. And thank you very much all at the same time. I wag.
And remember, you can reach out to us through the email at barelyfurcasting@gmail.com, on Twitter, on Telegram, on our website, on YouTube, on Facebook, WikiFur, on Fur Affinity. I think I've hit them all, haven't I?
Wow, I think so.
I think so.
You
Yeah.
said Facebook,
Fur Life
Twitter,
Online.
For Life Online. Just like look out there. I mean, it's there. I mean, just type in stuff and you'll get there.
If you type in Barely Furcasting into the Googler, it'll show up. So
the Googler. I remember President Bush once said, "I'm a fan of the Googles and I do the internet."
I do the internet. And, you know, if you have a story you would like to hear, let us know, and we'll find the storybook to read. If you want a specific math subject addressed, or if you're having math struggles and you would like Tabin to help you, let us know.
Definitely.
And if green leafy vegetables are falling from the sky, that's lettuce snow.
Oh! Let us know.
Let us know.
Let us know.
And you can help support the show through donations at Ko-Fi/barelyfurcasting. And coming up next week is our Halloween episode.
Ooh, Halloween. And you know what's even scarier than that?
What's that?
Well, speaking of lettuce,
yes.
Do you know why the honeydew and the squash couldn't get married?
Why?
Well, they were like, well, we can't elope. I just did that.
You just did that.
So for any fur actually just listening to the end here, let us know if you actually heard that and tell us what you think about that. And
yes.
I totally think it's okay if you say Tabin don't.
Yeah, and our guest next week will be Lux Operon.
Oh yeah, good. Wait.
And vote. Be sure to vote.
Yes, definitely.
Do not forget to vote.
And it's like every year they say this, you've got to vote. It's very important to vote every year. They say that. Of course it is. But like even now, this year, it's like the most important, as Barely said at the beginning. Yeah, this is like the most important election in our history. So go ahead and vote. That'd be good.
Go ahead and vote. Fur up the vote.
Fur up the vote.
Fur up the vote. You know, if you did nothing else in 2020, if you voted, I wag for you.
I wag for you too. And if you vote for Tabin, that'd be fine too.
Write in Tabin for president.
Tabin for president 2020. My first pup of business will be to insist on hugs and fluffies every hour at the most across the nation.
And I'm sure you would do something to get rid of this COVID.
I would.
At that, I'm going to say goodbye. So, Tabin, you should say goodbye.
Goodbye, Tabin. Barely, and things. I don't know what's happening. Okay, goodbye, all you Furs. Thanks for listening in, and we'll talk at you next week.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bark, bark.
Barely Furcasting is an Injured Nerves studio production and is found on all major podcast platforms or can be heard directly at barelyfurcasting.com. All opinions expressed here are those of Tabin and Barely, and neither received any commercial compensation for their opinions. The Furcast is produced, recorded, and directed by me, Barely Normal, aka Mike Began, and is edited by myself and our associate editors Rain Raccoon and Canes. This week's interview was edited by Rain Raccoon. Opening and closing theme music was created for Injured Nerves Productions for the use on the podcast by our music associate, Regde, with Damian Tanuki. If you would like to send us a message, you can do so via email at barelyfurcasting@gmail.com or on our Telegram chat at BFFTchat, on Twitter, or on our Facebook page, or on the barelyfurcasting.com webpage. You can also help support the show through donations at ko-fi.com/barelyfurcasting. Thanks for listening. We hope you come back and listen next week.